Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look in the Eastern Conference as we continue to go through our previews for each division, and today we are staying in the Eastern Conference looking at the Metropolitan Division. Now this is a division I know quite well. I've been to a lot of their stadiums, I've been around, I know the fan bases for the most part, and I think a lot of you will be excited to hear my predictions. A lot of you will probably be disappointed as well. So we're going to take a look today at the Metropolitan Division. This is a really good division, and for the last couple of years has been the best division in hockey. Now, I think there's a strong argument, especially this season, that the Atlantic could potentially overtake the Metro with just how deep it is. But based off my predictions here, I think there's going to be a lot of really good teams in this division. I'm giving a lot of respect still. Yeah, the Atlantic looks pretty good, but they don't have anything on the Metro quite yet. So let's start off with number 8 in our division, and we're heading to the city of brotherly love. It's the Philadelphia Flyers, finishing off with 79 points. This is not a team that I would necessarily be thinking is the top dog. Now, I completely forgot to change the points for a bunch of these teams, so I apologize for that. But it's basically the same points, just a little bit different. So I have the Flyers actually finishing with 77 points. You know, I think there's a team that's going to end up being at the bottom because there's just so much talent up top. They might even finish with 70 points. I think they're going to get destroyed in this Metro division. They're going to be playing a lot of these teams over and over and over and over and over and over again, and I think they're going to get destroyed. I got to be honest with you. I'm just going to spit the facts. I think the Flyers, they are going to lose a lot of games in their division this year, and you know, maybe that's just because they're not a good matchup against a lot of these teams or whatever, but I think the Flyers are heavily outmatched in this division, and that's just the reality of the situation right now for the Flyers. They're in the midst of a rebuild. Michkov is not over quite yet, so this is a team that's a developmental team. You know, I just don't see it yet for the Flyers, and they're building their culture, they're doing their thing, but there's going to be a lot of roadblocks this season, and they need a healthy Cam Atkinson. They need a healthy group with Carter Hart and this and that. There's just too many factors for me to give them a playoff spot or even be anywhere close toward a playoff spot in 2024. Number 7 is the Blue Jackets. Now, I actually have them finishing with 90 points, but I think this is a pretty good Blue Jackets team. They're going to finish with 90 points, and they're going to be 7th in the division. That just shows you what I think of this division. I think the other divisions in the Western Conference are going to falter a lot more. You're going to see a lot more teams with 70, 80 points. Not in the Metro. 90 points for Columbus. I think they're a really good team. I think they've got a lot of things going their way, but I do have questions about their goaltending. You know, I was a lot more confident going into last year with Merzlikins and Korpisalo. It's no longer going to be the goalie tandem. I believe they have Dania Tarasov and Elvis Merzlikins. A lot of things to like, a lot more questions though, and that's the bigger issue with the Blue Jackets. They've completely revamped that defense, which really is the difference between them being closer to Philadelphia in terms of where I think they're going to be next year. I think they've done a lot of really good things on that back end, bringing in Damon Severson, Ivan Provorov, guys that have played in the division. You know, they're going to be headhunting some of their former teams. I think this is a much better team than we saw last year. Andrew Peak, Eric Goodbranson, definitely weaknesses on this blue line. Adam Bolkfist is going to continue to develop. I'm looking forward to seeing him. And, of course, Zach Werenski, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a pretty good addition back in the lineup for them opening night. It's going to be refreshing to see Werenski back on the ice. You know, their forward group looks pretty good. I love the addition of Adam Fantilli. That's going to be a really nice piece. Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, all three of those guys. I'm really looking to that core moving forward for the Jackets. They've still got Boone Jenner, Patrick Laine, Gaudreau. I just don't know how good the depth is. You know, Jack Roslovic did not have a good season last year. He's currently listed on the third line. Matthew Olivier, Sean Corrali, Eric Robinson. Not really sold on that fourth line either. And especially in this division, I just don't think it's going to be enough. There's a lot of things to like about the Blue Jackets. Unfortunately, there's more things that I'm still a little bit suspect in. You know, Werenski's injury thing, like, is he going to be fully healthy this year? That's a big thing. So I have my questions about the Blue Jackets. I think they're going to be better this year than they were last year, but I still have them missing the playoffs. Number 6, we've got Washington with 93 points. So I have them actually a little less than I gave here. 93 points for the Caps. I think Spencer Carberry coming in, first of all, he's got a great name just right off the bat, but he's coming back into the Capitals organization. This is a tough job, and I think that is he going to be able to get the attention of the older players, the John Carlsons, the Kuznetsovs, the Ovechkins, the Backstroms? Are they going to buy into a young, up-and-coming head coach in Carberry? I don't know. And there is that kind of problem with what they had with Laviolette, where you've got the blend of the young players that you're trying to develop and get them moving up and continue moving forward, but you also have your guys that want to win now, that are ready to go and want all the ice time. Ovechkin, Wilson, Backstrom, Kuznetsov. You get what I mean here. There is that little bit of a transition. I think that's kind of been part of the problem, is they haven't been able to buy into, are we a playoff team or are we trying to redevelop and kind of retool things on the fly? And they've kind of tried the retool on the fly, and we saw that worked last year. They ended up missing the playoffs. So I have some things that I like about the Caps. The goaltending looked decent last year. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't a hindrance to them necessarily. Kemper and Lindgren coming back with that same tandem this year. I think the Capitals missed the playoffs here, but again, 93 points is no slouch of a season. I think they're right in that conversation where they were last year, where maybe to the last 2 weeks of the season, they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot and just coming up short. Now, this one's tough for me because I have the Islanders actually finishing with 97 points and not 96. 97 points for the New York Islanders. And this is really tough for me because as an Islander fan, I want to be way more optimistic and sit here and tell you, hey, I'm an Islanders fan. The Islanders make the playoffs. I just can't do that. And I look at how much better this division is. I have some questions about how good the Rangers and Pittsburgh are, and maybe the Islanders can sneak into one of those spots, but if I had to choose today, I think they're better than the Islanders. And I'm just not sold on they just don't have enough scoring on this team. And I think that's a real problem for them because we saw Oliver Wahlstrom when he went down last season. That was the end of the Islanders season. They could not score goals without Wahlstrom. And this is not a discredit to Oliver Wahlstrom, but if Oliver Wahlstrom's out of your lineup and all of your production just dries up, that's a huge problem. And we know down the stretch, Bo Horvat and Matt Barzal weren't able to develop that chemistry. They did have some injuries down the stretch, but I don't think that matters. And to be honest, I love the Islanders' defense. I've been a huge fan of harping on that their defense is pretty good. Sebastian Aho on your second pair doesn't evoke a lot of confidence for me. Alexander Romanov did not develop the way I would have liked to have seen him last year. I think Scott Mayfield is now officially an overpaid third-pairing defenseman, and I love Scotty. I love Scott Mayfield. Remembered watching him fight in Bridgeport, but the reality is this defense is not as good as it should be. And Pelech and Pulak are one of the best 1-2 punches, top pairs in the NHL. But the depth behind that left me with a lot more questions than answers last year, and unless they're able to figure that out this year, I just don't see it happening. The offense looks okay. I like Pajot, Cizikas, Nelson, Horvat. I always talk about that center core needing to be good. The Islanders definitely have that, but I don't know. Palmieri is too on and off. Hudson Fasching, is he going to continue what he did last year or just stay where he was? Engvall, they gave him a long-term deal. I'm not a huge fan of that. And the third, as much as I love the identity line of Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck, they look kind of slow last year. I got to be honest with you. And I think running that back, the Islanders are definitely doubling down. And I don't know if it's going to pay off this year for Lamoriello and the Islanders. So that leads us to our playoff teams, and that is the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they get back into the playoffs. I think Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and now Erik Karlsson are going to get this team back into the playoffs. And this is tough for me because, again, of course, as an Islander fan, the Islanders were able to sneak out Pittsburgh in the playoffs last year. This one's really tough for me because I am not sold on that goaltending in Pittsburgh. I do not like the goaltending, and I think Nedeljkovic and Tristan Jarry, if Jarry can stay healthy, this is where Pittsburgh's going to be. They're going to be fourth in that division, and everything's great and dandy. If Jarry is hurt again, and Letang and Karlsson aren't healthy, and this and that, this could be a rough season for Pittsburgh. But as of today, It's hard for me to bet against Crosby and Malkin missing the playoffs 2 straight years in a row. They've never done that in the era of the Malkin-Crosby era. I just don't see it happening now. I think Pittsburgh ends up sneaking their way in with 99 points, and that's it. Now that leads us to number 3, and this is the big 3, and you could see that with the standings. There's a gap between the Rangers, Carolina, and New Jersey compared to the rest. The Rangers are my next team. I think the Rangers are a very good group still. I think the addition of Laviolette could pay off for them this year, but it's going to ultimately sacrifice their future. I think it's going to be a good year for the Rangers. Again, Shesterkin's been really good. I think that's going to continue once again. And he actually had a little bit of a down season, in my opinion, last year. I think he's going to be better this year. This is a good Rangers team, man, and I think that defense is very good with Fox. Keandre Miller had an incredible run last year. I expect that to continue. I just think this is going to be a tough team to beat, and I think they are a playoff team in this division. The Carolina Hurricanes finished with 108 points as second in the Metro this year. They won the division the last couple years, but I think that we're seeing a new changing of the guard in this division. We'll get to that later. But I think Carolina's goalie tandem, Rod Brendamore's system, they're just going to continue to chug out the way they have year after year after year in the Brendamore era. I think Carolina gets back to the playoffs, but the difference is they need Svechnikov, they need Aho, they need their top guys, Marty Necas, to step up in the playoffs and stay healthy, because that was a big problem for them last year. They couldn't be healthy. They need to stay healthy this year to go on that run and maybe even win a Stanley Cup back down there in Raleigh, North Carolina. I like some of the things about this team, and like I said, Brendamore's system, everybody buys into it, and it just seems to work. I expect that to continue. And that means with 112 points at the top of the Metropolitan Division, I have the New Jersey Devils. And the Devils are going to finish at the top. There's a lot of things to like about the Devils. Their defense, their forward group. I do still question their goaltending, and that could ultimately be the Devils' downfall. If we see anything of what we saw from Akira Schmidt in the first round of the playoffs, they have a lot of potential there. Nico Dawes, there's a lot of question marks in between the pipes, but if any of them break out and turn into really good starting potential goalies, the Devils could get really hot and really do what they did last year. Get off to a really hot start and kind of just continue their way up until the end of the season. But I expect to see that little bit more veteran leadership from some of these guys. They saw what happened last year. They know what they're capable of. I think they're going to be hungry this season and wanting more playoff success this year. And I think that the Devils will finish at the top of this division. There's so much depth there all across the board. And like I said, it just comes down to goaltending. All right, so that is it for my Metropolitan Division standings. Going from the bottom to the top, at number 8, we've got Philadelphia. Number 7, Columbus. Number 6 is Washington. Number 5 is the New York Islanders. Number 4, making the playoffs, is Pittsburgh. Number 3, making the playoffs, is the Rangers. Number 2, making the playoffs, is Carolina. And, of course, winning the Metropolitan Division for the first time in quite a while, the New Jersey Devils will win the Metropolitan Division with 112 points. So guys, that's it for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.